Welcome to the Perspective for Beginners series. If you've been with me up till now, we've looked at 1 and 2 point perspective and how to plot vanishing points when we can't even see them. But so far we've stuck to our perspective grids. What happens when we want to turn an object within that grid? Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyler. Your name is Bo?
Bo, the truth. Thompson, your boy.
Today we're going to look at auxiliary vanishing points and turning objects in space so that they're not sitting perfectly in a perspective grid. So first, what is an auxiliary vanishing point? Basically, we can add as many vanishing points to a scene as we want. But if we add a new vanishing point to a scene that's in, say, 2-point perspective, is it then 3-point perspective? No, not really. 3-point perspective is a thing, and we're going to look at that in the next video. But in this case, what we're doing is adding an auxiliary vanishing point just for our reference. But how do you know then if you're in 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, etc.? It actually doesn't really matter. But usually there is a dominant grid that helps you see things more clearly. With interior shots, this is usually the walls of the room, since rooms are usually rectangular, and we often decorate things aligned to the walls. Only some objects will be rotated, so the majority of the scene falls in this grid. With environment shots, like the classic castle in an organic landscape, you don't really need a perspective grid at all. But if I were to use one, I would set it up for the castle, since that's the only thing in the scene that has right angles. You might have a village scene where houses are laid out haphazardly. In this case, maybe most of the buildings might be on a main grid, which would determine my perspective, and maybe 1 or 2 of the houses are rotated, so they would get auxiliary vanishing points. You can add vanishing points to, say, scale a person back in space, and it can go absolutely anywhere. It's basically just for our own reference. You can add a vanishing point for a road that maybe doesn't follow the grid. You can even add a ramp to it by having the vanishing point up in the air. Just draw a line vertically up from where the road's vanishing point would be on the horizon line. Bring some perspective lines down, and we can build out the ramp. And we can do the same sort of thing when rotating an object. First, let's just send one side back in space anywhere we want. We're making a new auxiliary vanishing point, but it's still in our scene and it's only rotating sideways, not rotating, say, front to back like that ramp was. So the vanishing point is still on our horizon line. Now comes the tricky part. As I said, this box is still in our scene, and whether we realize it or not, we're using a certain camera lens for the scene. Basically, as soon as we have an image, we're viewing it through some sort of lens. Remember that the corners of our boxes are 90-degree angles, or right angles. That right angle can look different in different lenses. It can look more or less distorted. So what all of this means is this new rotated box needs a second side with a new vanishing point. And if we get the placement wrong, it'll make that 90-degree corner look wrong, and that box will have a different camera lens applied to it than the rest of our scene. In short, our box will look wrong. It'll look like it doesn't belong. Now you might be thinking, if we have 2 vanishing points from our 2-point perspective grid, can't we just slide those over? Unfortunately, no. Remember that we're rotating the box, and that will change the angles at which each side of the box recedes in space. If we look at this from a top-down view, this line represents the horizon line, and our box of course has a 90-degree corner. This represents our box, which means these lines will go back and intersect the horizon line here. So these are our vanishing points. If we just slide these over for our new auxiliary vanishing points, and I now rotate our box so that one of the lines intersects one of the new vanishing points, you can see that the second line doesn't line up with the other auxiliary VP. This is because the angles change at sort of an exponential rate. It's starting to get a little jargony, but basically, no, unfortunately, you can't just slide over the 2 vanishing points. So how do we make sure we do this correctly? Honestly, there are some ways to measure it out, but it's so impractical and it's a total pain in the ass. So here's the practical version. Guess. Yeah, seriously, guess. Don't leave the video. I'm going to show you how to guess more accurately so that we can train your eye and you can better see when things go wrong. But here's the thing, if you guess at everything, it'll be harder to see what's wrong. When only one thing is incorrect, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So that will help us train our eye. So first set up a scene where everything will be in 2-point perspective and most everything will fall on this grid. Pretend it's the surface of a coffee table with some stuff on the table, and everything is perfectly aligned. A thin magazine, a stack of books which are all perfectly stacked, a Kleenex box, everything is aligned to the edges of the table and our perspective grid. Now add a new book to the table that is at a different angle. When doing so, remember that the corners are technically 90 degrees in perspective, and give it your best shot. Does it look right or wrong? It'll look extra wrong if neither of the new vanishing points are even on the horizon line. Remember that your new vanishing points will still be on the same horizon line. So to start off with, actually add one of the vanishing points. Now you know that one vanishing point is correct, and one side of our box at least will be correct. Now we can better guess what that second angle is going to be. And that's it really, just practice this kind of exercise and your eyes will get better and better at seeing what's right and wrong. You can start off with actually measuring out the one vanishing point as we just looked at to make your life easier. You can also take that away and see how you do at guessing everything. Practice drawing boxes in space without any perspective grids. Rotate them in space and also try to apply different camera lenses to them, which basically just means have your lines converge more quickly, the boxes will get more distorted. This exercise will help you draw boxes at different angles in different camera lenses, which will make the other exercise easier. You'll better be able to identify what kind of angles your rotated box will need when it's in a scene. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next video in the series, which is going to be 3-point perspective. As always, thanks for watching, be good to one another, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.